You're welcome to another episode on Global NEXUS Network. I hope you've been waiting for the part 3 of the podcast, How to Transform Zoom Lion. But don't worry, we are waiting for few information from the people, from the parties involved, and as soon as those information is ready, we're going to come your way with the part 3 of that podcast. We actually want the part 3 to be super amazing and very informative, very educative, and tackles all the things we intend to solve with that particular video. That is why it's taking us so long to come up with that video, but in a few days it's going to come your way. But before I continue with this episode, I would want to say a big shout out to our earlier subscribers. We appreciate your support and we encourage you to continue watching our video, subscribe to our channel as we come your way every week. Today we want to talk about something different from what we did earlier. We want to do some post-election reactions. The election is over, the winner has been declared, and certainly there's going to be some reactions, or there's going to be some issues that will be coming out from either the losing side or the winning side. The president-elect, that is John Mahama, has come forth with what he intends to, the policies he intends to implement or to work on in his first 120 days in office. And that is what we want to give you reactions on, so it helps you on how to appreciate or even reject it as you think about it. So tonight, that is what you're going to talk about. And if you look at how the election went generally, it tells you something, it suggests something, and it tells you that the people who voted actually want action. That's kind of action now or never sentiment. You feel it in the atmosphere. So it's no surprise that the president-elect, that is John Mahama, has quickly come forth with the policies he intends to implement or to work on in the first 120 days in office. And tonight we are going to touch on the first 10 of them, and trust me, it's going to be super interesting. This reaction is going to be super interesting, so you follow us to the end of this video and you get all the reaction, because 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th and 10, they are all interesting, and you wouldn't want to miss our reactions on these policies. So let's get straight into the list of policies the president-elect John Mahama has put forth as being the first thing he will look into in his first 120 days in office, and see what he has. So first on the list is to nominate within the first 14 days the complete list of cabinet ministers for parliamentary approval. You see, this is not new to any new elected government. Almost every new elected government would want to have the people he would work with within the first few days in office, and that's exactly what John Mahama has said he is going to do. So that's number 1, and it's not new, just like I said. So let's look at number 2. Number 2 is also not new. Almost every new government does that. But in John Mahama's case, there's a twist. And I believe that is what's generating most of the news. And that twist is also what bothers a lot of minds, including even my own mind. And let's look at what the number 2 also says. Number 2 says that to constitute the leanest and most efficient government in the first 90 days in office. The leanest and most efficient. Okay, so that statement is okay, is well taken. But what really made the case was the number John Mahama gave with regard to what is going to be the number of ministers he's going to work with. He said he's going to work with 60 ministers, and people were like, how is that possible? Because we live in a country that's we've had double of that number managing the same territory, the same population, the same institutions, or the same state institutions and institutional offices. So how come that in this time around we are going to have half of that number, or 60? And don't also forget that he added a word, the most efficient. For the leanest, we understand the numbers is actually going to make it the leanest, the smallest. But so how is that same number being the most effective? Perhaps the small size is also going to make it effective. Maybe we'll take it that way. But we all pray that we get it's as the most effective as it's being described by John Mahama, because it's going to be to our benefit. Let's check number 3 on the list. To establish a robust codes of conduct and standards for all government officials. I think this is one thing that most Ghanaians would want to take interest in, because I personally think that is one of the reasons why the outgoing governments lost this election, and lost it in the manner in which it happened, because we were actually in a state where it feels like we've lost leadership in the country. When a government officials misbehave, or even when something happens and it bears the brands of the government, or it bears the brands of the ruling party, we don't get anybody to speak to it. We don't get anybody to address it properly. So it begins to raise or give a sense of loss of leadership in the country. And I strongly believe that's one of the reasons why that Ghanaians decided to put or cast their votes in the manner in which we saw in the just ended election. So it's no surprising to me that the president-elect has this on his third list of things he wants to do in the first 120 days in office, to establish a robust codes of conduct and standards for all government officials. I think it's going to be a very good thing, and if John Mahama could actually come up with something robust as he's describing, I think it's actually going to be one thing that is going to actually make the population be so much proud of the votes they casted in the just ended election. So I wish him all the best with regard to that he comes forth with something more robust, just like he has described. So let's go into the thoughts on John Dramani Mahama's list. It said, hold a national economic dialogue to discuss homegrown fiscal consolidation solution. Let's look at the choice of words of John Dramani Mahama. I'm interested in homegrown fiscal consolidation solution. Homegrown fiscal consolidation solution. That's interesting. I don't know how you take it, but I take it differently. And this is how it sounds to me, because we live in a country that's where we disregard all forms of good fiscal policies, and we practice deficit spending to the highest we can go. And when we finally get ourselves into a ditch, that is when we able to think about something, and the best we can think about is to go in and call in the white man to bring their money. So when the white man brings their money, you don't call it white man's money to bail us, you call it IMF deal. So when it finally arrives, that is when we able to think about that there's something called good fiscal policy, and we are instructed to follow them. So I'm happy that at least our president-elect is saying that we are going to go with a homegrown fiscal consolidation solution. It tells me that, oh no, all this what that I think that we can never think on our own and decide on a good fiscal policy. All these days that I used to think that we can only do deficit spending, just like everybody is doing deficit spending, whose money would bill you? It never crosses our minds. We always want the white man to bring their money, and we call it IMF deal, because I think that name is a better name to describe it. It gives us some leverage. But that is not what we want to talk about. We want to talk about what John Mahama wants to do in his first 120 days in office. And he says that he's going to actually bring on board a homegrown fiscal consolidated solution to our economic woes. And we pray it also become a success for us. Number 5 on the list, that is also another one on not only on the minds of almost every voter, but also on the lips of almost every voter, to scrap e-levy, COVID levy, 10% on betting tax and emission levy within first 90 days in office. Most Ghanaians jubilate this, and I'm sure almost everybody was expecting this to be part of whatever John Mahama will put forth to handle as early as he could, because it was one of the central campaign messages Mahama was moving around during his campaign. And it's no surprise that it sits on the number 5 of the list of things he plans to do within the first 120 days. So there's one thing that is actually left untouched, and I don't know, let me ask this question. I'm also sure that is also on your mind. Somewhere, was it this year or last year? I think last year, there was sharp increments in data bundle, and there was this allegation of the government being involved or pushing some telcos to increase their data. Some were saying that it is actually to create competitive edge to, or for a falling service provider within the system or within the industry. Some were also saying that it's just to increase government revenue. So right now that this government is no more, or maybe from 2025 you're not going to see this government, and then there's going to be a new government whom would probably have a different line of revenue stream, or would have a different way of revenue generation. Does it also mean that you're going to get our data back? We are going to get some fall in our data prices, or the data price increment has come to match with the economic hardship, so we're not going to see anything like that? Maybe the days ahead will tell us, but we are also hoping that indeed that going government played a role in that sharp increment in data prices. We should equally see some drop as the government goes away, or the new government is deciding on a new revenue streams away from the e-levy, the COVID levy, and then the betting levy, and all those electronic levies. I think we should also see something in that regard. So that is number 5 for you, and we also hope it happens, so that, because most Ghanaians are waiting for something of that to happen, because I know of a couple of people who has won bets long ago, but waiting for, they are saying they're waiting for Mahama to scrap the betting tax for them to withdraw their money. So a lot of people are waiting for this to happen, and I'm not sure, just like I'm not surprised, they are also not surprised. Number 6 is commence drafting needed legal amendments and prepare for implementing the 24-hour economy policy. Certainly, I was expecting this to be part of whatever Mahama would say or would do, even if not 120, even 1 month. I expected it to be part, because over the days of telling Ghanaians about 24-hour economy, there's a lot of allegations. People are even accusing him of himself not really understanding what he's preaching. So if there was any chance that John Mahama would prove to Ghanaians that he fully understands what he's telling Ghanaians, I think it's actually the best time. Within the first 120 days is the best time to tell Ghanaians that he himself fully understands it, and he's going to implement it as he has promised. So he's saying that within the first 120 days in office, he is going to commence drafting legal amendments and prepare for implementing the 24-hour economic policy. We all will live to see how it will unfold, and we also hope that it become a success. It's actually serve the purpose of Mahama intend for it to serve. So the 7 on the list, that is where we are now, and then there's number 7 says that to implement the no academic fee policy for all first year students in public tertiary institution. This is also a good thing, but to me it's not a big deal. Maybe some people think that this is going to be a big deal, but to me it's not a big deal. And the reason why it's not a big deal to me is that when you talk about free education, sometimes I wonder why in our part of the world we find it so difficult to implement free education policies. When you go to Europe and other places, even people move from Africa to Europe to school for free. So what is so wrong about me living in my country and having tertiary education for free? I see that just a continuation of the free education the outgoing government implemented. Even if the 4-year degree is even free, it's still not a big deal to me, because it's practiced almost everywhere. When you go to Europe, Eastern Europe and all other places, citizens of country, even members of EU, they school for free. It even extends to international students who even go there in some of the schools over there. So to me, basically it's not a big deal to have first year tertiary institution students their fees scrapped. It's not a big deal. So if Mahama is actually going to implement that, it's a good thing. It's a good thing, just that it's not a big deal to me. So let's move on to number 8 on his list. Number 8, to institute a government policy banning political appointees from purchasing state assets. We are back to this thing again. What they describe as state capture. And personally, I believe that state capture is also one of the reasons why Ghanaians gave our president-elect a clear mandate. Ghanaians were very upset with state capture under the outgoing government. And the interesting thing with the outgoing government was that there was a lot of them happening, and they failed to address it. We don't have leaders coming forth and addressing it properly to the satisfaction of Ghanaians, because they felt it's when it happens, it bears the branch of their party. It's actually going to make their party unpopular. But the just ended election has actually made it clear to everybody that it could be that addressing state capture or addressing scandal within your party could make your party or your government unpopular. But also leaving it or not addressing it to the satisfaction of the people of the country can far make your government unpopular. This is just I'm just reading it from the just ended election, and it's obvious. So if John Mahama is saying that he's actually going to institute a government policy, this time when he has the majority in parliament, some are even saying 2/3 majority, and that makes him what people also say supreme leader. I mean, he could do everything he put his eyes on, and it's actually going to be something that most Ghanaians is going to celebrate it, because it's actually going to protect state assets. It's a good thing, and we expect him to do it in full capacity, just like he has said. So number 8 on his list is also something that we all hope and we want to see it unfold as he has described it. Number 9 on the list is institute forensic audits into banking sector collapse, COVID-19 expenses, other reckless NPP spending and scandals. For the scandals, I don't want to talk about it, and I'm sure he's going to have a lot of them on his table. But there was something here that there's a word John Mahama is using here that I want to pay attention to: banking sector collapse. The Admin government calls it banking sector cleanup. So if John Mahama finds the need to call it banking sector collapse, that means he's up to something, and that is what we or Ghanaians want to see. Because earlier I stated that the ways and manner in which the election went in favor of Mahama, it means that Ghanaians want action. That's action now or never sentiment is still in the atmosphere. So for him choosing banking sector collapse instead of banking sector cleanup, Ghanaians want to see what he intends with that particular word today. COVID-19 expenses. People believe that COVID-19 brought a lot of money into the country, and we saw how those money was spent. Some time ago, we heard of COVID-19 money sharing in the northern part of the country, and sometimes just like the taxes that this outgoing government has all the time used to just brush over it, and not brush it to open it, but brush it to let the matter die. That is the taxes they've been using. So if Mahama finds the need to enter into that, Ghanaians are still hoping, and we are watching that he would do as he's saying. Another scandals. For the scandals too, there are quite a number of them, and just like I said earlier, this Ghana has always failed to address them, because it feels every time they occurs, they bears the branch of the party, and then addressing it will make the government unpopular. But just like I said earlier, that this ended election has also opened a new front of thinking, a new way to think about some of these things and how to address it. Better to address it or leave it, and it's going to harm you. Ghanaians have risen. So number 9, John Mahama is saying that he's going to institute a forensic audit into banking sector collapse. I was expecting banking sector cleanup, but he is saying that it's not banking sector cleanup. It's actually banking sector collapse and COVID-19 expenses and other reckless spending of the NPP, and also scandals. So the days ahead of us will actually show us how it's going to unfold. Last on the list we want to talk about is reopen probe into the 2020 election killing at Ayawaso West Wagon by election, the violence that occurred, and also murder of Ahmed Swale and others. So some people think that it is important anyway, but it's not. It shouldn't be among the things he would want to look into in his first 120 days. That's some of the people's opinion on YouTube and other social media channels. But personally, I think it's equally important and it equally should be among the things that John Mahama should look at as early as 120 days in office. If you actually look at what is in this number 10, probe into IRSOS wagon killing and violence and other things, it has actually been one of the many ways that the NDC government has been criticizing this outgoing government of not doing anything about it. So it makes no surprise that it is among the things they would want to look at first. And personally, I think what happened when election is conducted and people lose their lives, some of those who lost their lives or some of them who sustained severe injuries were even polling executive or polling agents. So these are the people who risked their life to protect the integrity of our election, to see to it that there was fairness, and out of that they lose their life or they sustained severe injuries. I think just to honor them or just to tell them that indeed we appreciate they spending their time on our election, just look into their case. We are not saying that compensate anybody or do anything to anybody, but just let's look into their case. Whoever faulted, whoever kept the law in his or her hand should be dealt with. That is all we want, and this is going to be a great honor even to the death and to those who sustain injuries and are still living. I think it's actually a good thing to look into. And besides, I also think the NEC also hold this particular thing high esteem because it has been one of the ways they've been criticizing this government for not doing anything about it. And other killings, Ahmed Swale and others. Once we are looking into murder and violence, it also makes sense to add those ones as per the circumstances surrounding the ways in which they all occurred. So this is the 10 things John Dramani Mahama, our president-elect, wants to look into in the first 120 days in office. Is literally a glimpse of all the major promises the NDC government's promised Ghanaians, and you could see that almost all of them are captured in this 10 list. And if Mahama is able to actually impress people with his touch on these within his first 120 days, I think Ghanaians will begin to appreciate the votes they casted on December 7th, and I'm sure if not him, his party will be rewarded for a second time if he does so well and impress Ghanaians. So this is Global NEXUS Network. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do what to subscribe and like our video, because it tells us that you like our video and you like what we are doing, and it motivates us to do more videos. Don't also forget that you need to subscribe to this channel because there's going to be a part 3 of the video that seeks to transform YouTube. Just like I said earlier, that we want the part 3 to be super interesting, informative, and at the end of the day, transform Zoom Lion. That is why it's taking us so long to come up with a video. But don't worry, in the next few couple of days, you're going to have it in your way. So because of that, I would want you to subscribe to this channel, and you're going to be among the first to receive the video when the video is uploaded. This is Global NEXUS Network. My name is Alex, and thank you so much for being with us.